Gorgeous. So it's been a busy week. Jake and I picked our rehearsal dinner venue, which was awesome. We're going to do it at a park shelter, and we're very excited about it. We're going to get catering. We're either going to get like Olive Garden or pizza, and it's just going to be a fun, chill time with 60 of our nearest and dearest. But I think it will be a great time. I'm very excited about it. That's one of those things on the list that I've been freaking out about for a while. So it's nice to have it. Like, yes, we booked it. We put the money down. We're going to have it. We get it for 6 hours the Friday night before, from like 4 to 10. And so that's plenty of time. We probably won't even need it the whole time. And we'll definitely get to run through our ceremony, just hang out and eat some food and talk and maybe do some toasts if people want to. We'll see how the night goes. We really needed a place that could hold everybody that we wanted to invite, and with 60 people, we found a park shelter that fit 100, which is next thing. We had another meeting. We had a Zoom meeting with our venue coordinator, which was very helpful, but also a little frustrating in a few ways. This is one of those things where too many choices is too many choices. I asked like my main questions, like, oh, will we have like this at the ceremony? How wide is the aisle? So how many people can walk down at a time? Can we put things in the ground? And some of those, have clear cut, like we can do that, or you cannot put things in the ground. So some have clear cut answers, which is what I was looking for. The issue is when it was like more the monetary questions, which is rough. Those are the things that we really need some insight on, and we're not really sure what to do. I've mentioned before my struggle with the cocktail hour, and Jake said we should probably do a cocktail hour if we're gonna have the ceremony and like we might shift the schedule still. Our thought is to have the ceremony. It'll be 3:30 to 4, and then we'd probably eat at 5 or 5:30. So that is an hour and a half gap. So I asked, how much are these? And he said, oh, we can figure that out later. And I said, no, I would like to know how much that is, because that's not included in our budget. So if we want appetizers, if we want a late night snack, if we want to, with our venue, the bar is cash bar, if we want to host it. Our venue coordinator said we could just if we wanted, we could just give them $2,000 and then it's open bar until that money runs out or something like that, which sounds fine in theory, but I don't know how much we can give them. I don't know how much to budget. I don't know how much is a good amount. And so when I'm trying to ask questions, they're just like, oh, it's up to you. Oh, that's something you could figure out later. I'm just like, I want to know now. He's like, oh, you don't have, if you do a cocktail hour, you should do this, but if you don't want a cocktail hour, you could do that. And like, oh, if you want late night snacks, then like that might, like, oh, if you have a shorter ceremony or a shorter reception, that's not necessary, but if you have a longer one, then you will want it. And I just don't know if we do a late night snacks. I don't know. There's no prices listed. So I don't know how much that would be. I don't know how much we should order, because I'm assuming not everybody who comes for dinner is going to stay for the late night snack. They're probably going to leave before that. Like if we eat at 5:30 and then have a late night snack at like 8:30, 9, I'm sure in that gap that people have left the building. And he did say like we can bring the cake home, but anything besides the cake, it stays there. So it's like if we get a bunch of, I don't know, like sliders or something, and there's half of them are left, we just like waste them. That just sounds terrible. But he didn't really have any insight on what to do. And I suppose since we don't have our finalized guest list, maybe that's the issue. We do have one more meeting that we do a month beforehand, so that will probably clarify some things. It's rough when you have a budget, but you don't know if you need to allocate more. Because it's really just appetizers and drinks that we just are up in the air on, and those are things that cost a lot when it comes to weddings. So I just wish we had more of an idea when it comes to that. And also just like, oh, like where do we put like seating charts? Where does the cake go? What happens with this? And they say, oh, everything's variable. It's up to you. I've been in the space twice, so it's hard for me to know what goes where. I think the thing that stresses me out the most is walking down the aisle at the ceremony, because I think I've mentioned it's in a clearing. Our wedding is in a clearing, and there's a little tree-lined pathway to get there. But there's nowhere to hide. Like me and the wedding party, there's nowhere to go. Like unless we go and stay in the clubhouse for the golf course, but that's like a distance from where the ceremony site is, because it's pretty much like our ceremony site is here. There's a big parking lot for the golf course. So there's wedding parking on like one section, and there's the golf course parking, and then the clubhouse. So we'd have to be like way over there just chilling out while our guests show up. And that seems like a far way to be. And then also, you know, when we're walking across, there might be people still getting to the ceremony, walking in from their couches like, hi, nice to see you in my wedding dress. But that's just something we'll have to figure out when we get to it. I'm not super stressed about it. I'm just a little disappointed that it won't be a big ol' surprise. I guess it won't really be for Jake either, because we're doing a first look. But it would have been nice to surprise the guests. But that's how it is. It's one of those logistical things I didn't think of when we booked the place. So yeah, Tuesday we booked our rehearsal dinner, which is great. And then yesterday was the meeting. And in between that, so Friday night, Jake and I, we decided to go through some premarital counseling questions because we thought that would be fun. Because we're not going through a church, so premarital counseling isn't required. We have heard that you can get a discount on your marriage license if you do premarital counseling. But I think like paying for the premarital counseling classes doesn't really, like, since you have to pay for that, like, the discount doesn't really make a dent. And Jake and I have a pretty healthy, like, we talk pretty often. If we have issues, we bring them up. So I just found just a huge list of questions. Like, I'm not kidding. When I went through this list of questions, it said 10 questions, but each question had a subset of questions. And then I also went to different websites and just kind of made a Franken list of premarital counseling questions. And we sat there and it took us probably a couple hours to go through all of them. We're just like sipping and getting some snacks and like asking each other these big, deep questions. And like 10 out of 10 would recommend. Like it's near the end, you kind of just go like, oh, whatever, I don't care. But I feel like it's a good date night idea to just like hash things out and ask each other questions. It was super fun. And then there are a lot of things, you know, we asked the question, but we already knew the answer. But sometimes you get to get more insight into why they think that way. And another reason we wanted to do this is because there was a night, I can't remember why I did this. I think it was something I saw on Habitica. I should talk about Habitica sometime. It's a great site. Anyway, so it was basically you hang out with your partner and you get a piece of paper. Like I remember we each got a piece of paper and a pen, and we had like, each of us had a glass of wine, and we had a big like cheese and cracker platter. And we just sat there and we wrote down what we wanted to accomplish in the next 5 years. And and we did this months ago, but it was super fun and really eye-opening. So we wrote our 5-year plans. So we each of us had a big long list of everything we wanted to accomplish. And once we'd finished writing it, I think we gave ourselves like a 5 or 10 minute time limit or something. And once we finished it, we each went through our list, like we took turns. So Jake would say his first one, and I'd just be like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then sometimes he'd expand on it. Sometimes it was a very like, it was a goal like related to like his Japanese study. It's like, wow, yeah, that would be really cool if you could get that get to that point in 5 years. And then it'd be my turn, and I'd say the thing I have on the top of the list, and then we'd discuss it, and then we went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it gives you a lot of really good insight. I guess for an example, I don't want to like talk too much about Jake, because I don't know how he feels about stuff being on YouTube. But it was basically just like, I'm a nanny, and I said in the future it'd be really nice if I could maybe open an in-home daycare. At the same time, that's a lot of logistical work. We would need to like have a different sort of house with more space in it. Or even just like buy a duplex, so one side of the house is the daycare and one side of the house is where we live, because Jake works from home, so that'd be, so we're talking about things like that. Like logistically, that'd be nice. Or if I did one day like get a book published, it'd be cool if I could do nannying part-time and writing the other half, like other part-time. And so I wouldn't be like consistently trying to only write on like, my weekends and my nights. And So that's an example for me. So then we're discussing that. He's discussing his job, like prospects, what he wants to do. It doesn't even have to be something like set in stone. It could just be a random thing you throw out there. You're just like, this. I thought of this at some point, but I'm not sure if it's actually something I can do. But here, what do you think about that? It's fun. Moral of that, I suppose, is if you want to find premarital counseling questions online, if you want to just talk to your partner about the future, sometimes it's nice to just set aside some time, hang out, get a glass of wine or like a beer or whatever, and just and a cheese plate or like whatever kind of snacks you have, and just go for it. maybe to some people that sounds like a really lame date night, but I thought it was so much fun. It gives you so much insight into your partner, and that's something we like to do, is just talk things out and hash things out. So yeah, I would totally recommend it. And if you need to or want to do like actual premarital counseling things with a therapist, that's more power to you. That's something we didn't really feel that we needed to spend the money on, just because of like our communication style is pretty healthy already. And I know some people say you should do it before there's a problem so that you don't have problems. But it's if you're on a budget and you can't afford to do counseling, and you like don't have a priest to go to do counseling, it gets you thinking, and then you have a better idea of what you and your partner, what page you're on. All right, I'm done ranting about that. That was our week. So I suppose our week was pretty good if you just count those aspects. There were a couple lows for me. I know the other day, my future in-laws went to a wedding and they were talking about it. And there are the few things they said where I was like, oh no, like, are they gonna judge parts of our wedding because they're judging this part of that person's wedding? So I know people just like to, complain and point things out. So I'm trying to take too much stock in it, but it was making me a little anxious yesterday. And then I was working on the invitations. I was trying to make a map, but then you have to, invert it and flip it, because I'm doing it on so I think I mentioned we have bifold cards, just, a normal open letter thing. But instead of opening them vertically, I want to like turn them sideways and open them like this. And so this like front, like would just have like the actual invite, and the top inside would have like hotel info, and the bottom would have RCP info, and the very back would have a map between the reception and the ceremony site. But since it's flipped, I have to basically make the map and then invert it so it's upside down in like the proper way so people can read it. And I was having so much trouble doing that last night. I struggled for like 2 hours or more, and I eventually printed it out, and then I showed it to Jake, and I was like, oh no, I hate it. But I'd already saved it and like left the app, because generally you can, Control Z and go back and like redo the thing you don't like. But I had already saved it and just left it, so there's no way for me to go back. And I was like, oh no. And then after all that, Jake's like, oh, that's something I could probably do. Like, you don't have to worry about that. I'm like, Jake, all I do is worry about that. This is this is what I do for, I don't know, not for a living, but it's just what I do all the time. But it was nice for him to say that he would take that off my plate for me and he could design the invites, because I feel like Jake has more of an eye for working with computers and maybe design too. I don't think either of us are very design focused, so I think he'd probably do a better job, just because he has a better idea of, at least online, he has a better idea of like user experience. So maybe he'd have a better idea of like what's more readable to the guest. That's how I'm hoping it translates to. But besides those couple hiccups, it's been a really good week, and I'm hoping it continues on as we continue planning. Bye!